there. Welcome to Finger on the Pulse. We're here at Somerville Cable Access. We are a newly formed team at Keller Williams Realty. So we just wanted to welcome you to our new real estate talk show.
And for anyone who doesn't know where Keller Williams is, we're on Mass Ave, right between Harvard Square and Central. So that is our new office location, and please do come visit.
So we're very excited to be here today. Enough about us. We wanted to introduce you to our guest today, Jessie Banhazl from Green City Growers in Somerville. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
Thanks for joining us.
Being here.
No problem.
We're huge fans of your company and you. And just so everyone knows, we first met when you came on to my husband's cooking show, From Scratch. And we filmed a section at the Fenway Urban Garden that you and Green City Growers installed, which was awesome. That was like the epitome of urban farming right there.
It was a really good time.
Yeah, and Chelsea was there. And but you also do a lot of residential farming as well, and that's something we definitely wanted to talk about. Could you just briefly explain how you got into this and how you started this company?
Sure, yeah. So Green City Growers has been in business now for almost 8 years. I actually didn't have a horticultural background when I got into growing, which is, I think, a nice indicative that it's actually possible to get into, even if you really have no experience or identify as having a black thumb, which we've met a lot of people who do. But I worked previously in television production. I've always had a passion for food. I worked for the Food Network for a little bit, and I am from Wayland, Massachusetts, moved back to the area and was inspired by companies on the West Coast that were installing vegetable gardens for residential people in their yards and providing ongoing maintenance and educational services. And so nobody was doing it in the Boston area. Myself and a friend from college started the company, Green City Growers, and we really started focusing on homes and how people can grow food on site at their home, which very quickly evolved into commercial work as well. We do restaurants, we do companies, we do employee wellness programs for businesses where employees can come and grow food. Wow. We have a rooftop farm on the roof of Whole Foods grocery store in Linfield. We have Fenway Park, and we do tons of area restaurants and senior living and schools. So tons of different applications of urban agriculture. But it did start with just the idea that if you have a little bit of room on your property, why not grow a portion of your produce at home? It's easier. You can actually control where the food is coming from. You know what you put in the ground and what kind of soil you're using. Right. The quality is really high because it's super fresh when you harvest it. And you can actually grow varieties that aren't typically available at the grocery store. So tons of benefits.
I know my husband's always really frustrated with the produce selection in our grocery store. So something like this would be phenomenal. But just to talk a little bit about putting residential gardens in, can you talk a little bit about, do you go to people's homes and do you kind of help them scope out where the best place for a garden is, or maybe when someone's looking for a home, you can help with that process?
Yeah, we've done both. So what we do is we set up what we call an initial consultation. And so that would be having somebody from Green City Growers come by and meet with you and looking at the property. We have a really awesome professional tool called the Solar Pathfinder where we can look at where the sun is in the sky at different times of year.
That's genius.
Yeah, and different times of day. And so we're able to identify what the light looks like on the property, which is the key variable.
At any given time of the day, or?
Yeah, at any given time of the day. And it's just kind of a chart of where the sun is in the sky, and it reflects down onto the chart. It's got a mirror that reflects down onto the chart. So, with that, we can look around a property, figure out, ideally you have over 4.5 hours of sunlight, but really you want more like 6 or 6.5 hours of sunlight to grow everything you want. And, finding that spot on the property and then figuring out what the best application of growing is for the space. We've put in raised beds for people. We've worked with in-ground gardens. And we've also done creative containers like planters, milk crates, kiddie pools, lots of really fun ways you can grow food.
That's awesome.
Quick story about that, because Jessie, you provided that service for me and my husband at our new house last summer. And we clearly didn't consult with you before we had the garden beds installed, and we ended up with these beautiful garden beds in the shadiest spot in our garden, and there was absolutely no sun hitting them.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
now that we're well educated and you brought over that awesome tool, you know, we know where the prime areas are, and you're absolutely right. We had like amazing bounty all summer after we moved the garden beds over just a few feet, so it made all the difference.
Yeah, and other things, the light is really key. Other things to consider, critters, you know, it depends where you are moving. In the city, we mostly just have rabbits. Those are really the problem animals. We've seen a huge influx of rabbits over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I live down by Fenway, and
They're
the
everywhere.
public gardens down there just are surrounded.
Yeah, so you know, but if you're, say, in the suburbs, deer can be a bit of a problem also. And so, you know, having proper fencing is definitely a variable. Also, just thinking about where your water source is, so making sure that you have easy access to water. Interesting things people don't think about, too. We suggest installing the garden visible to you from your home. It will make you maintain it more regularly. The closer to the kitchen, the better. So when you're in the kitchen, you can kind of look out and see what's right. So that's kind of where we make recommendations. But sometimes you got to work with what you've got.
Right, absolutely. And you do sometimes work with like condominiums to put actually right on the roof?
Yeah, so on a commercial scale, we've worked with developers and property management companies to put in community gardens right on the roof or on deck areas, or even ground level for tenants in condo buildings and apartment buildings. So that's
so exciting.
Really exciting, and often it will be like one plot per unit in the building. And so if you live in the building, you end up with a garden plot. And that's a huge advocacy point for us in general with new development, is why not integrate community garden space into residential housing? Because one of the things that I think people lose when they live in condos or apartments is outdoor space.
Yeah,
and so providing that to people is a huge benefit, and often it actually values the property higher.
I was just going to go there with you. Does that actually, does something like that, do you think that, does that add value to a property? In what capacity and in what way?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the percentage of add is, but you know, thinking about how outdoor space would add value to a property, or having a roof deck, having a community garden plot, or having that as a place to grow, it's infrastructure that then is yours. And so having garden space is definitely value. And we've seen houses, we've been told the projects that we've installed where the house is sold, that it has increased the value of the home.
Yeah, and just thinking about buyers that I've worked with, you know, especially those first-time buyers that may not have done it before, if it's already in place and even producing, that would be such a value add for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to do that, you can also move garden beds with you to your next home. If you do raised beds or containers, you can pack it up and move it. We've done that for people a lot, actually. We've had clients we've worked with who have moved homes, and we've actually just packed up the raised bed and moved with them. So that's the nice part about doing container growing, is it's mobile. The smaller the container and the more mobile, the more we recommend that for temporary living. If you're living in an apartment, you know, and say you know you're going to be buying a home in the next year, or you know you're going to be moving around, it's easier to do containers because you can always bring them with you. Yeah, just have the moving company put them in the truck.
And that's really interesting, because it just like pinpoints how you don't need a lot to grow. Like, do you have offhand like how much one raised bed, you know, standard size would produce over the summer? Yeah,
so we recommend, we do the dimension of 4 feet by 8 feet for the raised bed gardens that we install. We recommend 1 4 by 8 per adult as kind of a minimum.
Okay.
Little kids, you know, if you had 2 or 3 4 foot by 8 foot beds for a family of 4, that's usually a really great sweet spot. And so that space can yield you, a 4 by 8 can yield really 50 to 75 pounds of produce a year.
That's great.
Yeah, and if you do season extension, like coal frames or hoop houses, you can actually get more produce than that. So yeah, a lot of produce. And I think that always ends up being a dynamic between how much time do you have to cook, how much time do you have to maintain the garden, how much space do you have, and kind of a sweet spot between that and having it be the best kind of garden fit for you and your family.
And when do you recommend getting started if somebody was interested in doing it this year?
So gardens, for the most part in New England, you can't really plant outside until about mid-April. So we do suggest if you're going to be installing raised beds or getting containers or tilling your property, kind of tilling up your soil, that happen late March, early April, in the hopes of getting stuff planted around April 15th, which is typically the thaw date for the area. And so ideally you've got spring crops planted by the end of April, all those awesome summer crops that people most likely associate with a vegetable garden, like tomatoes and cucumbers and basil and eggplants and peppers, those go in all around Memorial Day. So even if you're not, even if you haven't gotten your garden bed installed until May, really anytime before early June, you're in great shape to plant a full season garden. But we put them in at all times of year. You just kind of go into whatever you can grow for the rest of the season.
Okay, so I was gonna ask you. So it really doesn't vary depending on, like, for example, last season was such a different season than this season is. So it really doesn't depend too much on that. It's just on a very, ongoing cycle that certain vegetables are planted and maintained and that kind of thing.
Yeah, last year's a great example. So we had a really, really condensed spring last year. And so there's certain crops that grow well in cool weather and others that really prefer warm weather. That's the real differentiator between them. And the cool weather crops you can kind of get in as early as you can. Hopefully this year it's been so warm that we can start to get these crops in at the beginning of April, even some of them. And then you'd get a longer cycle on your spring crops before you plant the summer. Last year, we didn't plant a lot of crops that take a long time in the spring because we didn't have time. So certain crops like arugula and radishes only take 30 days to harvest. Things like broccoli or leeks or onions, they take more like 65, 75 days. So if you lose that early spring, we suggest avoiding the crops that take a long time. Do a bunch of short-term crops and then go into your spring. So it's a little modified.
So would you say that the crops that maybe prefer colder weather or colder temperatures, have you not really been able to work with those products this year?
You can, this year not yet. We do cold frames for season extension, and we usually plant those around the beginning of March. Also, you can plant them in the fall, and they overwinter. And so we've got crops that have overwintered that are harvestable right now, especially a day like today, which is really warm. And so that's a really great value of kind of closing your garden and having a greenhouse structure over it. But we definitely hope to plant a lot of spring crops. But if it's super warm, we could also just start the summer ones early.
Great.
Depends what you like to eat, really.
Yeah.
And you still have your garden at Assembly Square going?
Yeah. So we have a big vegetable garden at Assembly Square that is used by the on-site restaurants. It's also available open to the community for educational purposes.
Really?
Once a month on a Saturday. Cool. And then we use it as an employee wellness program for one of the companies in Assembly Row as well. So that's a great example of how one garden location can be so multifaceted in the type of people that it reaches and its purpose. So it's growing food, it's going to the restaurants, but it's also an engagement tool for people to think about how food grows and learn how it grows and connect deeper with healthy and quality produce.
Yeah, it's so amazing just how many, aspects there are to it, I mean, you're teaching people, you're helping them take care of themselves, and the food tastes so much better when you grow it yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a whole nother thing when you have broccoli fresh cut from your own garden.
Yeah.
So the kids like it better. And you're giving to the community, and
yeah. And one of the things I think is a common misconception about vegetable gardens is that they're these kind of messy things on your property. We do cedar raised bed installations, but we've seen people do really beautiful integrated stonework. Kind of work with all different kinds of aesthetics that already fit in with the existing landscaping.
Yeah.
If you bought a home and you are looking to redo the landscaping, that's the perfect time to kind of work in raised beds into the greater scheme. But they don't have to stand out, and they don't have to be this kind of what people consider to be an eyesore. Containing it and creating walkways and mulching. There's so many great ways to make it really clean and contained. I think that's a really common misconception, especially about front yard gardens.
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes that's where you get the best sunlight. And so using containers and raised beds is a really great way to work with that and to not feel like you're tilling up part of your yard and kind of disrupting the grass and making this hole in the ground.
That just led me to think about something else. You mentioned when we started that, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a green thumb and be really into gardening. And do you have ways that you work with people that are like, you know, Jessie, I really love fresh vegetables and I really want to have like produce and I want to grow it, but I kill all my houseplants. Do you have recommendations for people like that? Certain things that they can grow or certain things that are easy to maintain?
Well, you have a great book, just real quick.
We wrote a book, yeah, we wrote a book. It's called The Urban Bounty, How to Grow Fresh Food Anywhere.
Wow,
and that is available on our website, and it's just greencitygrowers.com. And that book is definitely a guide, you know, a do-it-yourself guide to growing food. We offer assistance plans. So we do consulting for people. If they've got an existing garden or we've put in raised beds, we'll provide what we call urban garden consulting. We can come by and work with you to train you on how to maintain your garden. We do biweekly maintenance plans also, where we can come and actually care for your garden or care for your garden and work with you and potentially your kids. Yeah, to teach you. So we have those kinds of maintenance and assistant plans. But in terms of it being simple, it's really about the infrastructure. It's like as long as you have the right size container or the right size bed, you know, the right good quality soil, it's getting sufficiently watered, you can pretty much grow anything. And I think that goes for houseplants also. It's like knowing the criteria and the needs of the plant is key.
Right.
And if you don't have that criteria, try not actually growing that thing is usually the best thing that we recommend. So if you have a low light garden, you know, you're probably not going to have success with tomatoes, but we know that with 4.5 to 6 hours of sunlight, you can successfully grow lettuces.
But I really want tomatoes in my ground level apartment.
Yeah. So probably should just buy them at the store.
Right.
Unfortunately. So it's really about your space and the criteria that it allows you to kind of what you can work with.
But really anybody can do it on any level.
We think that anybody can do it. Absolutely. And, you know, I think the only thing missing for people is information. It's like not, you know, when, especially in urban and suburban areas like Greater Boston, most of us grow up without any interaction with food growing.
Right.
Even, you know, I grew up in Wayland and there was some farmland, but it was mostly livestock. And I don't recall really seeing food growing. And it's something that we all become really disconnected from. And so, you know, it can be really intimidating and the idea of growing produce. But if you just try, we actually recommend planting a lot of different stuff so that if things die, you're not hugely disappointed. And giving it a shot and seeing what works and what didn't. What are you actually using in your kitchen? What was easy? What wasn't? Everybody's space is so different, but it's a really positive activity.
Yeah, I think it's really great.
Really great.
I mean, as a child, I grew up in New Hampshire, but even still, I grew up in a more, you know, suburban kind of city atmosphere, not really like when you think New Hampshire, like farm. And really my only association was food came from the grocery store.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of a recent movement that we've gone back to this, you know, and you guys are part of that and spreading the word and educating people. Would you say it's getting out there more? People are getting more aware into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started this business in 2008. And it was interesting. Back then, people were kind of like, why would I hire you? Like, why don't I just go to the grocery store?
It's a lot of work.
Which is such a different mentality than now in 2016. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to a general push for the country being more sustainable, and a lot of visibility around inefficiencies in the way that we do things. And I think people are becoming more educated about the fact that most of the food we have at the grocery store is being shipped from across the country or from across the world.
Wow.
And realizing when we're hitting these oil crunches or we're worried about natural resources, that's not a really efficient way to do it.
Right.
Also, you know, I think a lot of the food safety scares that have happened in recent history, people are realizing that the way that food is being grown and produced on an industrial scale isn't as safe or as perfect as we originally thought it was. So we're getting this great return to what is something that people have been doing for all of time, which is growing their own food, and which was a huge movement in the U.S. Going into the world wars, World War I and World War II. And in the 40s, I mean, everybody grew their own because they wanted to have people be growing food at home so that the rest of the produce could go across the world for the troops. So there's huge governmental pushes for victory gardens and for people to be growing their own food, and then we lost it totally. And now we're coming back to it. So it's great. I think it's a positive trend. And I don't think it's going anywhere. I think like we didn't consider recycling to be important, and now
Until
it's integrated
pretty
into
recently, right.
the culture. I'm really hoping that that's something that we see happen with people growing a percentage of their own produce on site at home, or at their restaurant, or at their school, or at their senior living, just some percentage, because that makes a big difference when it adds up.
Absolutely. Those small little changes add up.
Yeah.
So for any viewers that are very intrigued by this idea, business owners, homeowners, things like that, do you go anywhere? What's your parameters?
Yeah, so our geographic range currently, we do southern New Hampshire, eastern Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So we have a pretty wide range. We've done garden installations down to Long Island, New York.
Wow.
So we can do installations pretty much anywhere in the region. It just depends on the size and what the kind of preferences are. For maintenance and educational services, it's really within an hour of Boston.
Okay.
So yeah, we can send, we have huge school programs on the North Shore. We do the Beverly Public Schools and the Linfield Public Schools. We do a lot of Boston Public Schools. We do Fenway Park.
That's
we
great
have
that
a
you do
ton of
Boston
area
Public.
companies.
That's fantastic. So if somebody wanted, for example, like a consultation, and they're not really sure that this is something that they want to do, maybe they're a little further out, how do you
So
arrange that?
I would suggest going to our website.
Okay.
So the company's Green City Growers. The website's just greencitygrowers.com. We have all of the pricing information, all the information about what, kind of criteria you would need for this to be appropriate for your space. Looking over that information and feeling like, yes, this is something I want to do, or no, actually, I think I want to hold on that. That's a really great way to do it. We
Good
do
to
phone
know.
consultations with people if they have questions, so we're happy to answer questions. You can just call our office, and we typically can walk people through if they're feeling like they don't know if they have enough sunlight, or they're concerned about
certain aspects.
aspects of it. Yeah. If cost is an issue, I do suggest our book. That's really our kind of most cost-effective.
It really is great.
Just do yourself. You can go out and get the materials yourself. It's more labor-intensive than having us come in and help. But if that's what you prefer, then our book is absolutely a great resource. The other thing that we have is we do intensive workshop series. And so coming up in March, the weekend of March 19th and 20th, we're doing a weekend-long urban intensive course at our office in Somerville that's open to the entire area. And that's a really great way to learn how to build a bed, how to install a garden, how to maintain it. I absolutely suggest that.
You said March 19th?
March 19th and 20th. Yeah, it's the whole weekend. So it's an intensive course. We cover everything over 2 days. That's a really great course that we offer.
That's a great
Now,
offering.
Jessie, you would like to hear from developers, right, who are interested in this idea?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In case any are watching.
Yeah, developers and property management companies, we've had some great conversations with recently on considering, first kind of an immediate level, like, are there properties that have tenants that would get value from this?
Okay.
And that's not just residential. We do businesses. So, for example, we work with Boston Properties, and we've got gardens in their Kendall Square locations, and they're used by Biogen and Akamai Technologies and Google, all as a get outside, meet people from different departments, all the produce is donated.
Nice.
So it's an HR activity. So, depending on what kind of building it is and if it's multi-use or if it's residential, there's different ways a garden could fit in.
Okay.
So we can work with existing buildings, but rooftop farming in particular is very complicated in the execution and is best implemented as a part of new construction. So we would love for developers to consider rooftop farming projects early on in the planning stage so that it's possible for these to get executed. Great. And I think that's the key is, like, would the tenants be, gain value from this rooftop farm? If that's identified as a yes, how do we integrate that into the blueprint for the building?
Awesome.
Such a great idea.
There's so much new construction going on right now.
Yeah.
It's a good time to get in there.
Yeah, let's see some rooftop farms. And then, the best part about rooftop farming too is you're not competing for space.
Right.
So, thinking about taking up a vacant lot that might be better used for housing, and especially in communities that are in housing crisis.
Or for example, anybody who's been on a waiting list to get into the Fenway Gardens for a very long time.
Or any of the area community gardens.
Exactly.
Yeah, no matter what municipality you live in. There's a huge waiting list.
There's always a waiting waiting list.
So having a building, moving into a building with a community garden plot on the roof is hugely valuable for people.
Great sun up
Absolutely.
there.
Oh yeah,
Clearly.
yeah, and
It's perfect.
rooftops have great sun.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that either.
So I know we're about to run out of time, but I also wanted to mention you also do beekeeping services?
We don't do beekeeping,
Not
we do
okay.
chicken keeping
You do the chicken
services.
keeping? Great.
Yes.
I'm interested in that.
So beekeeping, we partner with an organization called Best Bees. And so if you are interested in having a hive at your home, they can install it for you and provide consultation and maintenance services.
Cool.
We do chicken coop installations. So we do chicken coop installations and maintenance services. There are a couple of municipalities that don't allow it, unfortunately, which is Boston and Cambridge. But the rest do. So if you live in Somerville or Belmont or Arlington or
Yeah, that's great.
Newton,
Fresh eggs.
Yeah, you can have fresh eggs, and mostly
Yeah.
I'd say that they're also considered pets. They could also be
Absolutely.
considered meat, birds, but I'd say in our kind of day and age and application of
Pets.
chicken keeping,
Let's go
it's
with pets.
I have clients that have them, and they say they're great pets.
They are great
I
pets.
can
They
confirm
have
that.
wonderful personalities. They're really funny.
Aw.
And you get fresh eggs every morning. So that's a great, we think chickens are great, especially for families with younger children.
Okay.
It's a great activity. The care level, we kind of describe as somewhere between a cat and a gerbil.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we could
sounds
do
crazy.
a whole nother episode on this.
Minimal. They're not like having a dog or another child.
Good.
It's not that bad. And I'd say most municipalities and communities allow up to 6 hens and no roosters. So roosters
And
are a major
people can
concern.
get more information.
On our website. Yeah,
On your
chickens
website.
is on our website also.
Great.
Can you give us your website real quick?
Yeah, it's greencitygrowers.com. So we
Awesome.
are Green City Growers in Somerville.
Great.
Very, very
Thank
cool.
you so much for imparting so much knowledge on us today.
No
It's
problem.
been wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
you really add a lot of value to not only our clients, but the whole community. So thank you so much.
No problem.
I think we're out of time. So thanks for joining us today, and see you next time on Finger on the Pulse. Have a good day.